Family Guy has definitely done wild things, but these episodes made fans pause the screen and whisper, "No way they aired that." Today, we're digging into the 5 episodes viewers say were actual mistakes, and these are the tonal disasters, the controversy magnets, and the storylines even the writers probably regret. Let's get into it. Number 5. Fresh Heir. Some Family Guy episodes are chaotic, some are unhinged, and then there's Fresh Heir, the episode that made fans stop mid-bite, lower their snacks, and say, "Wait, they're not actually doing this, right?" Spoilers, they most definitely did. And they committed to it. Because this is the episode where Peter tries to marry his son Chris. And somehow, that's only the beginning of the discomfort. But before we even get to the wedding, Peter does something so wild it feels like a setup for a punchline, but the punchline never comes. Because he literally signs legal papers to become Chris's son, just to slide himself closer to Carter's money. Then comes the cursed moment that fans still joke about in therapy when Peter realizes the fastest way to get that inheritance is to marry Chris. A disturbing move. A move that made even longtime fans check if their TV was glitching. Lois tries to stop it. She pleads, argues, throws herself into chaos, but Peter is fully committed to the bit. He even says, "Lois, you're just mad Chris loves me more. And also because I look stunning in wedding white." And then the wedding happens. Full aisle, audience, even vows. Peter is swooning and Chris is just confused like always. Everyone else is treating it like it's a church picnic. This wasn't shock humor. This was shock architecture, layered, escalating, and completely deranged. By the time Lois crashes the ceremony, viewers weren't laughing. They were seriously asking, did the writers double dare themselves to air this? And that's why Fresh Heir permanently lives on every top 10 worst Family Guy episodes list ever created. Not because it was boring, but because it was wrong in a way only Family Guy could try and maybe shouldn't have. Number 4. Turban Cowboy. What happens when Family Guy tries to mix shock humor with one of the most sensitive topics on Earth and then accidentally predicts real-world tragedy? Yeah, this is that episode. An episode so controversial, people weren't arguing about whether it crossed the line. They were arguing about which line it obliterated. Turban Cowboy starts with innocent chaos with Peter trying to prove he can hang with Joe's extreme sports buddies. Normal Griffin stupidity, right? Until bam, skydiving accident, hospital scene, new friend, and suddenly Peter's joining a Muslim group. At first, it plays like a typical stereotype-heavy Family Guy plotline filled with awkward jokes, edgy cutaways, and Peter misunderstanding literally everything around him. But then comes the moment fans still talk about, the cutaway bomb montage. Peter repeatedly driving a car into crowds, explosions everywhere, and the punchline? Him casually saying, "In my defense, Lois, most of my friends are shady." It was meant to be dark humor, but it instantly ignited backlash. Was the show pushing boundaries, or was it simply genius-level dark humor? Let us know where you stand in the comments, because then it only got worse. A few weeks later, real life took a horrifying turn with the Boston Marathon bombing, and suddenly, that montage looked less like shock humor and more like a nightmare prediction. Networks pulled reruns. Fans demanded the episode be banned. Some countries did ban it. The internet labeled it everything from insensitive to dangerous, and it became one of the most widely condemned episodes the show ever aired. Number 3. Not All Dogs Go to Heaven. Not All Dogs Go to Heaven is the epitome of an episode that tries to be emotional, thoughtful, even philosophical, and that's exactly where things started slipping. Because what happens when Family Guy tries to tackle religion, science, belief, atheism, and morality all in one episode and ends up starting an internet war that still hasn't cooled down? This is the storyline that divided fans harder than any edgy joke ever could. Because this time, the punchline wasn't offensive. The episode kicks off innocently enough at a Star Trek convention, but it spirals the moment Meg reveals her newfound religious awakening. And in true Griffin fashion, she immediately picks the worst possible target for conversion, the one and only Brian, the show's proud, outspoken atheist. What follows is Meg versus Brian. Not funny, not playful, it's just uncomfortably intense. Meg's mission? Convert Brian. And Brian's mission? Resist her. The writer's mission? Apparently to start a theological cage match. The episode's most infamous moment comes when Meg delivers her dramatic, trembling line, "You're not alone anymore. You have God." And instead of emotional resonance, fans felt a hard cringe. It didn't land as growth or comfort. Instead, it felt manipulative, heavy-handed, and wildly out of character. Brian, usually the voice of reason, gets backed into a corner. Meg, usually the underdog, becomes the aggressor. The message isn't subtle. It's a brick through a stained glass window. Even people who agreed with the episode's point found the delivery, well, preachy. And if you survive this roller coaster of morals and beliefs, like this video, number 2, Herbert and Chris. Now, this one's not one episode, but kind of a saga because Herbert's crush on Chris starts as an early season background bit, and it's unsettling for sure, but is also delivered with that soft-spoken, trembling voice that made it feel cartoonishly harmless. There's shock humor, there's dark humor, and then there's the one running gag that made even the most die-hard Family Guy fans tilt their heads and go, are we still doing this? Because while most characters evolve, grow, or at least switch up their punchlines, Herbert the Pervert has one joke, and the show pushed it so far it basically became a genre of its own. But then, the writers kept going and going. Entire cutaways became dedicated to his slow, breathy advances. Whole scenes revolved around Chris being young, clueless, and in the wrong place at the wrong time. And then came the musical moment nobody asked for, but everyone remembers, with Herbert singing Somewhere That's Green, a full Broadway-style number about his fantasy future with Chris. Chris, naturally, remains completely oblivious, which is the only reason the joke works at all. He walks into Herbert's house, ignores every red flag, and somehow accepts a popsicle from a man whose catchphrase has practically become a meme saying, "Come on in, I've got popsicles." It's iconic, but uncomfortable. Yes, it's somehow both at once. Everything is delivered casually, like Herbert isn't the most concerning neighbor in Rhode Island. Number 1, Screams in Silence. This is the episode where the show didn't just cross the line, but it sprinted past it, tore it up, set it on fire, and asked, is this still a comedy? Because number 1 on our list isn't controversial for a joke, it's controversial for the absence of one. Screams of Silence centers on Brenda Q, Quagmire's sister, and her violently abusive boyfriend, Jeff. On paper, Family Guy tackling domestic violence sounds bold. In execution, however, it felt like someone accidentally swapped in the script for a Lifetime drama and forgot to add literally anything funny. You watch Brenda excuse abuse with that shaky, trauma-coded voice. You watch Quagmire, Joe, and Peter try an intervention that somehow manages to feel both serious and tonally confused. And then, the moment fans still talk about today, the brutal fight scene between Jeff and Quagmire's crew. No punchline, no cutaway, just raw violence that made millions of viewers check whether they'd accidentally tuned into a different show. The problem wasn't the topic, it was the tone. Family Guy's edge works when humor cushions the impact, but here, the comedy disappeared, leaving a bleak half hour that felt like the writers were punishing the audience for expecting to laugh. And that's why Screams of Silence is widely considered the show's biggest tonal disaster, the one episode that felt like it wandered in from an entirely different universe. Family Guy has survived decades of chaos, gotten canceled twice, revived twice, memed into immortality, but every long-running show has moments fans look back on and go, yeah, maybe we shouldn't have done that, and that's exactly what ties all these episodes together. But every mistake episode reminds us of one thing, that Family Guy works best when it's offensive and funny, and not when it forgets the funny. Nothing could save some of these disasters. But honestly, that's part of the charm. The show fails loudly, weirdly, spectacularly, and then gets right back up and throws a cutaway gag at our faces like nothing happened. So, which of these episodes do you think was Family Guy's biggest mistake, and did we miss one that should have made the list? Let us know your thoughts and opinions in the comments. And if you want to keep unpacking more of Family Guy's chaos, check out our video on the most loved and hated characters in Family Guy. Thanks for watching.